down to the wide lines of the Nun Zayin Amud base. So we saw a little bit of this yesterday. This is where we started off the end. Nun Zayin Amud base. Tana, we learned in a brayso, Naaman ger Toshav haya. Naaman was a ger Toshav. Who was Naaman? So he was the chief general of Aram, who was cured by tzaras by the prophet Elisha. His story is mentioned in Malachim Beis Perek Hey. So Nevuzaradon ger Tzedek. 4 lines down the wide lines over here. Nevuzaradon was a ger tzedek, as we just mentioned in the Gemara. Mibnei banav shel Haman lam Torah b'Bnei Brak. The descendants of Haman to Torah in Bnei Brak. Who were they? Haman, we know who he was, but it doesn't say who his descendants were. So the famous question all the Achronim ask is that you can't take Haman from Amalek, and we don't make gerim from Amalek. So how does that work exactly? So this safe. Maybe, but the Sefer Ner Lameya, who had 100 terutzim to the B'Yisrael's Kasha, has one on Purim with 100 plus terutzim to this Kasha.
I thought it's the third generation.
It's Kenzai. I don't know. It's possible. We'd have to check Yevamos for that. Yevamos and Kedusha.
It's Moab.
Yeah, I'm in a Moab, but that was, yes, that's for sure. Mibnei Banav Shal Sisra Limdu Tinoikis B'Yerushalayim, the descendants of Sisra taught children in Yerushalayim. So it's interesting, each one is a different knate, right? This one was Limdu Torah b'Bnei Brak, this one was a ger tzedek, not necessarily anything about Torah. And Sisra's grandchildren taught children. It's a different story. Mibnei Banav Shal Sancheiriv Limdu Torah b'Rabim. The descendants of Sancheiriv taught Torah in public. So who man inun, who were they? Who were the descendants of Sancheiriv? Shmai v'Avtalion. Shmai and Avtalion were from the beginning skuf of the Tanam. They were the Rebbeim of Shammai and Hillel. And the Mishnah in Adius says that they were asking about the shear of something for a mikveh, and Hillel said in instead of hin. So they asked him why he's saying it differently than he would normally say. Like, what's this fake accent that he picked up? So he says, because Chayiv Leimer B'Lashon Rabbi, and Shmai and Avtal, because they were from Gerim, they couldn't pronounce all the letters. So this is the Makar. One of my Rebbeim said that this is the Makar where you can imitate your Rebbeim. So from that Mishnah in Adius. Okay. Hainu D'chsiv. So the Gemara goes back to the discussion about Zechariah's blood. This blood that we spoke about is, so Hainu D'chsiv, that's what the pasuk says. Nasati as dam al tzichiach sala levilti hikasais. Hashem says, I placed the blood on a smooth surface of rock, so it will not be covered, so it won't be absorbed into the ground. That was the story of Zechariah. So now the Gemara is going to dart on the pasuk of Kol Kol Yaakov Vayidai Midei Esav. So when Yaakov dressed up as Esav and he disguised himself and went to Yitzchak said, Kol Kol Yaakov Vayidai Midei Esav. So the Gemara is going to interpret this verse as a prophecy of, Esav overpowering Klal Yisrael. Kol Kol Yaakov Vayidai Midei Esav. Hakol Zadrionis Kesa. This voice is the reference to the crying of the Jews at the massacre inflicted by Hadrian, Shaharag Alexandria Shal Mitzrayim Shisha Riboy, who slaughtered in Alexandria of Egypt 60 myriads, or 600,000 people, plus another 60 myriads. Keflam Kietz Mitzrayim, which is altogether about twice the number of those who left Mitzrayim. Kol Yaakov Ze Aspasionus Kesar. The voice of Yaakov. This is a reference to the crying of the Jews at the massacre inflicted by Aspasionus, who we spoke about earlier yesterday. Shaharag Bikrach Beitar Abba Meis Riboy, who slaughtered in the city of Beitar 4 million people. And some say that the number slaughtered was 40 million. The question is, are these numbers exact? What do these numbers mean? There are places in Chazal where the Gemara says that the Chacham spoke Lashon Guzma, that they exaggerated different things. This is not one of them. So we have to know, is this an accurate account, or this is just a big number to make it sound horrible?
We never 14 people.
What?
But we never 14 people.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm asking.
It's not possible.
Right. So the Amrilo Abbas Allah from Riboy. Fine. By Yadayim Yidei Esav, the Yadayim Yidei Esav is a reference to Zumalchus HaRashah, is a reference to the evil government of Rome. She'achrivas Beisenu V'sarfet Zeichelen B'Glisanu Me'arten, which destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, burnt down the sanctuary and sent us into Galus. Davar Acher, Hakol Kol Yaakov, the voice is the voice of Yaakov. There's no successful prayer which the descendant of Yaakov is not a participant. Which is a very interesting thing, because we know that the Goyim have a musig of tefillah, saying the Arabs for sure, even in other religions, they have a concept of tefillah. And it's interesting because there's a Reb Moshe Grad writes in the Tshuva that some people hold that if a guy experiences something, if a guy's in a tzara, he shouldn't daven. Of course he should. Why not? Right? The Shlomo HaMelech was maspal when he built the Beis Hamikdash that when a guy comes to daven in this makom, his tefillah should be answered right away, because for a guy, he asks God. God sends him the present right away, and he doesn't have to wait around for it. Even we have emunah, so if we don't get a response right away, we could hold on a little bit, right? So there's no such thing as a successful prayer which the descendant of Yaakov is not a participant. I was thinking a little bit interesting thing. I don't know if this is true or not. A lot of times a person's tefillah doesn't go up all the way, like it gets stuck for whatever reason, and then you need to give it like an extra push or motivation to make the tefillah go to where it really needs to get to, don't they? So I was thinking that the pshat is that even the tefillahs of the goyim, even if the tefillahs of the goyim do have somewhat a concept of tefillah, but the tefillahs only go up together with the tefillahs of the yidden. I mean that the Yiddish tefillahs are the ones that push the tefillahs of the goyim in, which would be a very interesting thing why that would be, and I have to think about it a little more and I have to look into this a little bit more, but there may be something over here. There's no victorious military campaign in which the descendant of Esav is not a participant. So if it's talking about other kinds of things, so then there's always a concept of netzach. It's interesting. The tie to the word netzach can either mean to win over or something that's eternal, right? Nitzchias. So the Maral uses it the Maral says it means both, because when Hashem's going to destroy the Yetzer Hara, that's going to be a netzach for nitzchias. Once you won the battle, there's no going back. It's all done. It's completely settled. Completely settled the score. I don't have to go worry about anything more than that. Behind the Dam Rebbe Lazar, and this is what Rebbe Lazar says, this is going back to the story of Kamtzah and Bar Kamtzah, which led to the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. The pasuk says, "B'shoit lashon techaveh." The pasuk says, when your tongue is shoit, you should hide, which means b'chirchure lashon techaveh, from the contentions of the tongue, which means from the slander you should hide, which means that you should stay away from lashon hara, because you see what happened. You see what happened to the Kamtzah and Bar Kamtzah. Rebbe Lazar relates the word shoit to shevet, means basically changing the vav for a vase, which means a rod. A slanderous tongue is analogous to a rod used for beating, which the chet shachot l'shonim, all kinds of chazalim that we know from the Gemara, and the Chaim brings them all in Shmei Salashon about the dangers of lashon hara and the people not being careful with the way that they speak. Okay. Rav Yehuda Marav says, what's up Shem in the pasuk that says, Al Naras Bavel Sham Yashavnu Gam Bechim Zachrein was Tzion. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat and also wept when we remembered Tzion. So the question is, the David HaMelech said this was before the Beis Hamikdash was even built. So what are you talking about? So Malame Sharewa Kadosh Baruch Hu LeDavid Churban by Yisrishim Churban by Yisheni. That Kadosh Baruch Hu showed David HaMelech the destruction of the first and second Beis Hamikdash. Churban by Yisrishim. This that Hashem showed David HaMelech the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash. Shenemar Al Naris Bavel Sham Yashavnu Gam Bechinu. By the rivers of Bavel we sat and we also wept. This pasuk is describing the Golus Bavel, which was following the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash. By Yisheni, Hashem showed David the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash. Ksiv, a later pasuk in that capital, Zechar Hashem l'bnei Adam esim Yerushalayim ha'imrim oru adi yisayba. Remember Hashem the day of Yerushalayim for the descendants of Edom, for those who say destroyed to its very foundation. This verse refers to the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash, which was brought on by the Romans, who were descendants of Edom. It's interesting that they weren't able to destroy certain parts of the Beis Hamikdash, even with Shas Maisa. And the foundation of the Beis Hamikdash, in a certain sense, they couldn't destroy it, and that they were very bothered by that. So that's why they said Oru Ada Yisoida. Okay. Omar. I'm just looking something over here. Yeah. Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel Vitem Ravami Varmila Masnitza Tana. Rav Yehuda said the name of Shmuel, or some say that Ravami said it, or some say Tana told him Raisa. Ma'isa B'daladi Meis Yilada Yilada Shinishbul Akolei. There was an incident where 400 boys and girls were captured and taken by ship to Rome to engage in shameful activity. The boys were taken for Mishkav Zachar, and the girls were to become Shivchis. So they sensed what they were wanted for. So Amru, they asked them, Anu Tayv Mayam and Abon L'chayil Mabo. we drown ourselves in the sea, will we enter Olam Haba? Darash Lan HaGadol Shebehen, the oldest one of them, said the following to them: Omar Hashem mi Bashan Ashiv, Ashiv Mimtzul Eisam. Hashem said, I'll bring back from Bashan, I'll bring back from the depths of the sea. Mi Bashan Ashiv mi Ben Shinei Aryeh. The pasuk I'll bring back from Bashan means that Hashem will rescue the people from between the teeth of the lion, which was referring to the Galus Babel, these Romans. So Bashan is Bein Shein, between the teeth, right? There's actually a very interesting medrash that talks about that this pasuk is talking about the Har Sinai, Har Gav Nunim Har Bashan. So why is it called Har Bashan? Because they went by Mountain Torah, they still had the it was like Gvina Bein Shinehem. The Torah was like cheese in the teeth. Ma'at Kasher L'Chol Inyan, but it's a shvus for shvus really. The milchigs and fletchings of shvus. So Arshad Mimtzules Yam Elu Shetevim Bayam. The pasuk I'll bring them back from the depths of the sea means that Hashem will save those who drown in the sea. Means that they'll get to Yisam they go to Olam Haba, and they should jump in. When the girls heard this, all the girls first jumped in and fell into the sea. So Nasi Uladim Kal V'Chemer Be'atzman V'Amru Ma Lalu Shadarka L'Kach Kach Anu She'en Darkenu L'Kach Alachas Kama V'Kama. So when the girls heard this, they all jumped and fell into the sea. The boys raised the Kal V'Chemer argument in reference to themselves, and they said, now if these girls whose fate was to be forced to act in that way is natural, which at that time was a normal thing for people to take Yeshivcha, so they were Moshe Nefesh this way and they jumped into the water, so then we, whose fate is to be forced to act in a way which is unnatural, how much more so should we give up our lives? Interesting, just pay attention that the girls were the first ones in. The Chassid Yavitz writes, by the Spanish Inquisition, the people that were giving up their lives first wasn't the great Chachamim and the philosophers, it was all the people with the Munutrita, the women and the children, because they don't have a cheshbainis when it comes to these things. So you already see that the boys are making a Kabbalah, I mean, it was to do the right thing. And as the Gemara is saying that they're going to get it in my book, the point is that they already had to think about it. The girls didn't think. They said, they just went. Fine. So they also jumped into the sea of Alema, Kosovaimer, and on this the pasuk says, because of your sake, we're killed all the time, we're considered as sheep for the slaughter. So the Rishayim already discussed that how could, it's a Gemara, but that how could a person be killed all the time? So if a person with Mesiras Nefesh, so it's as if he went to the slaughter. There's dying al Kiddush Hashem, but even greater than that is living al Kiddush Hashem. We know this from the story of the Beis Yosef, that the Maggid told him that he's going to die al Kiddush Hashem. So we know the Beis Yosef was al Ta'id, and he was nifta in his bed, after probably a short sickness. So what are the...
It's really not a suicide.
What?
It's not a suicide. They jumped into the sea, but they didn't jump into the sea to die. They jumped.
Right.
Eventually, they would die because they would drown. But the reality says that Hashem would protect even from in between the teeth of the lion. So, it's the famous thing: a boat can come and save them too.
Very good.
So it's not necessarily.
So you're answering the Achrayim's Kash over here.
It's not really suicide.
Because the Achrayim will ask that how could they do it?
They're going to try to swim until they can.
Right. Yeah, look at Taisus already mentions it. Taisus already mentions this idea. Over here they were afraid of Yisurim, because I'm reading by Hanan Mishal Azariah the same thing. They were afraid of the Yisurim that they were going to be put through to do the Averis by the captors, so they didn't want to deal with it. So the Beis Yosef died in his bed. So the question was, the Maggid told him, the Maggid was the Malach that came from Shemaim to learn with them. The question was, but that wasn't what happened. So he said, the person who lives his life al Kiddush Hashem, like the Beis Yosef. So when he dies, his misa is also a Kiddush Hashem. It's not as Amin, but it's also a very chashuv thing to live al Kiddush Hashem. Rav Yehuda says that the pasuk of Kelecha Ragnu Kalayim is the story of Zu Isha Shiva Baneha, is illustrated by an incident concerning the woman and her 7 sons. They brought the first son before the king and said to him, worship the Avodah Zarah. Amalahu, he said to them, so I'm Hashem your God, I'm not doing Avodah Zarah. They took him and they killed him. They brought the second son before the king to say to him, worship Avodah Zarah. Amalahu, he said to them, it's written in the Torah, shall not have any other gods before me. Avku v'katlu. They took him away and they killed him. Asuli idach amrulei. They brought him the third son, and they said to him, Plach lavetz kechavim, worship the Avodah Zarah. Amalu, he said to them, Kosav HaTorah, the pasuk says, Ve'ach le'lekim Yochara. It's written in the Torah, the one who sacrifices to a god shall be utterly destroyed. Avku v'katlu. They took him away and they killed him. Asuli idach amrulei. They brought the fourth son, and they said to him, Plach lavetz kechavim, worship the Avodah Zarah. Amalu, he said to them, Kosav HaTorah, le'tzishtach ve'le'acher. It's written in the Torah, do not bow down to another god. Avku v'katlu. They took him and they killed him. Asuli idach amrulei. This is the fifth one. And they said to him, Plach lavetz kechavim, worship Avodah Zarah. Amalu, we said to them, Kosav HaTorah, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Shem Echad. Nothing doing. Avku v'katlu. Took him and they killed him. Asuli idach amrulei. They brought him the sixth one, and they said to him, Plach lavetz kechavim, worship Avodah Zarah. Amalu, we said to them, Kosav HaTorah, it's written in the Torah, V'yadata Hayem v'ashevaisal v'vacha ki Hashem Elokim v'ashemayim v'mal v'arsh v'tachas ha'inai. It's written in the Torah. You are to know this day and take your heart that Hashem is the only God in the heaven above and on the earth below. There is no other. So Avku v'katlu. They took him and they killed him. Asuli idach. They brought in another son. They said to him, Plach lavetz kechavim. Amaluhu. He said to them, Kosav HaTorah Hashem Hemartav Hashem Hemircha Hayom. It's written in the Torah that we singled out Hashem to be our God, and Hashem singled us out to be His people. We have already sworn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu she'einanu ma'avir naisoi be'el acher. We will never exchange him for another God. And the same way HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a shvuah to us, she'einai ma'avir haisonu b'umma acheres, that He will never exchange us for another nation. It's kedai to look. Once we're saying this, it's kedai to look in the Medrash, in the Tanchum at the beginning of this week's parasha, which talks about Nedarim and Shvuas. He talks about the concept of Shvuas, and then after you look at the Medrash over there, it's kedai to see the Sefer Chinuch in Mitzvah Lamed, where he's married with a really long arichas about the concept of Shvuah, and basically he says like this: a Shvuah is very chamor because the concept of Shvuah is that we try to give something kiyum. The problem is that anything in this world has no kiyum other than ruchnias. So we're trying to make a kiyum that I will eat or I won't eat, or this is an apple, this isn't an apple. We're playing around with something that has kiyum. The only thing that has kiyum is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we're trying to apply something much bigger to something very small, and it just doesn't fit. And that's the severity of playing around with the Yitzhak of Shvuas. And he also goes on to explain what does it mean that HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes a Shvuah to us. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a little mile up from this concept of Shvuah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a kiyum without us. But the pshat is that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes a Shvuah for us, it's just that we can understand it. We have no idea, we have no musig ba'etzam and understanding of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is really about. So Amar like Kesar, so the king said to them, Ishdili Gushpanka, I'll throw my signet ring down to the ground, the Gachim B'Shikla, you'll bend down and you'll pick it up, so people will say you accepted the king's authority by fulfilling the king's request to pick it up. So Amalei, so the boy said to him, Chaval Kesar, woe to you, Kesar, woe to you, Kesar, if such is the concern for your own honor, how much more so should you be concerned about HaKadosh Baruch Hu? So as they were taken away to kill him, his mother said to them, give him to me and let me kiss him a little, let me say goodbye to my last child. So she said to him, my sons, go and tell Avram Avinu, you were makar of one son on one mizbeach, I was makar of 7 mizbeachs, sounds like on one day. Afi also lagag v'naflo mesa. She too went up to a roof and fell down and died. She couldn't take it anymore. So Yad Sabasko v'Amra, Sabasko came in and said, Ema ban of Samecha, the mother of the children rejoices because she's with them in Elam Abba. That was the Medrash Eichas says that she lost her sanity and committed suicide because of this. She went mishuga from this whole ma'isa. Okay? Yibishuva Levi Omar Zu Mila Shenosma B'Shmini. Kelaka Ragnu Kalayim is a reference to the mitzvah of Mila, which is given on the 8th day of the child's life, and many times it's a life-threatening thing. And when the Gemara Shabbos has big arichas that it's considered a chelet sheyesh v'sakana. The only reason why infants do not die through circumcision is that the merit of the mitzvah affords them protection, as they state in Chasam Sefer. Rav Shimon ben Lakish Omar, Rav Shimon ben Lakish says, just one thing, when the king threw the ring on the ground and told the boy to pick it up, he refused to comply because the king's image was engraved on the ring. So by bending to pick it up, he would appear to be bowing to the king's image. So it's forbidden to even give the impression that one is worshipping Avodah Zarah. The Gemara says the one may not bend down in front of Avodah Zarah even to tie his shoe or to pick something up because it looks like he's bowing down to Avodah Zarah. So you got to be careful about that also. Okay, weiter. Reb Shimon ben Lakish says, Elu Talmidei Chachamim shemarn hilchos shchita ba'atzman. This is a reference to the Talmidei Chachamim who demonstrate the laws of shchita on themselves. They pass a blade over their throats to show how the procedure should be performed. You shouldn't do that. The Omar Rava, this is, Rava says that you shouldn't do this because kol mili lechli inish benafshe. One may demonstrate anything on himself, bar mishchita except for shchita, v'davar acher, and something else. What's something else? That's tzaraz. So why is tzaraz referred to as davar acher? So Rashi says it's mipnei shemasukah lukvay to love. If you're showing about it, it may jump on you. You may get to it. Now, why is that? The one who demonstrates the symptoms of tzaras on himself is in danger of contracting the condition. The Maharsha explains this with the principle of a person should never open up his mouth to say something. So when we say chas shalom, and we're careful how we talk with around these ideas. That is, one should not say or do anything which implies that one is liable to misfortune, because the Satan is thereby given an opening to incite divine wrath and cause that very misfortune to occur. So, I'm not sure exactly how you would show a tzaras, but whatever it is, shouldn't do it. Menachem bar Yitzchak Omar, the pasuk of Kelecha Ragim Kol Yom Elu Talmidei Chachamim Shemisan Atzmam D'Vrei Torah. This is a reference to Talmidei Chachamim who literally killed themselves for the words of Torah in order to acquire the Torah knowledge, right? And obviously, it's understood. It doesn't mean that they killed themselves, but it means that they killed their bodies by refraining from all unnecessary physical comforts. And the Gemara Bracha says that a person should do whatever he could, that a filu b'shas misa, a person should try to be learning, and a person should person should always find himself in Beis Medrash, no matter what the story was. Okay, and Shimon ben Lakish, Tamar Shimon ben Lakish, the retirement, ein the retirement skayim el b'mishamem satz me'elo shenemar zoysa Torah odom k'yomus boil. This is the halach of a man who dies in a tent, which means the oil shall Torah. Amar Rabba bar Bar Chana, Rabbi Yochanan, Aboim Sa. Rabbi Bar Chana said in Rabbi Yochanan that there were 40 Sa and Chesed with Aleph. Ketutzei Tefillin of the, Rashi says the Tefusei Tefillin, meaning the bottom of the Tefillin, Chutz when there were two Akari Ketitza, Kedamirim Sech the Sukkah, Oiches Beretzu, Vein Oiches Beketitza. That you hold on to the Gemara Sukkah is talking about where you hold on to the Ritzu and you don't hold on to the bias. So they found 40 Sa of the bottom of tefillin were found on the heads of those slain in Beit. Should remember that they were wearing tefillin the whole day. Rabbi Shmuel Omar, Rabbi Yana, the son of Rabbi Shmuel, says Shalish Kupash Arboim Sa. They found 3 boxes of tefillin, each box measuring 40 Sa, were recovered from the Harugei Beit. But Masnisa Tan, we learned in the Brayta, Arboim Kupash Shalish Sa. There were 40 boxes of ketzitzis of tefillin, each box measuring 3 Sa were recovered from the victims of Beit. I mean, that's how many Sa of tefillin there were. According to the first opinion, 40 Sa of tefillin casings were found, whereas the last 2 opinions maintain that 120 Sa of tefillin were found. The Gemara resolves this question. How do we understand this steer over here? So, V'loi Pligi, they don't disagree, Hada Reisha, Hada Dara. The opinion that they found 120 Sa was talking about the tefillin shel Rosh, and the ones where they found 40 Sa was in reference to the tefillin shel Yad. Because the ones that are on the shel Rosh are considerably larger than the ones worn on the arm. In tefillin shel Rosh, the 4 parachutes are written in 4 parchments. Each one is placed in a separate compartment. Tefillin shel Yad, all 4 parachutes are written on a single parchment. I guess it means that the inside they found the parachutes of the tefillin more than just the bottom, because the bottom are really the same size, right? It doesn't really matter if your tefillin shel Rosh is very big or very small, and tefillin shel Yad is very big. I mean, we're supposed to keep them the same size. I mean, probably the best thing to keep them regular, but Rashi says a whole Torah here. Okay, Omer Avasi. Arba kav and moyach nimtzu 11 achas. 4 kav of brains were found on 1 stone. What does this mean? This means that by one of the pogroms that the Romans made, so afterwards they found this 4 kavim of moyach on 1 stone. Ula Omar Tishis kavim. Ula says they found 9 kav of brains on 1 place. Omar Rav Kana v'tem Shila bar Mori. Rav Kana said, some say Shila bar Mori, said, Micro, what's a shot in the pasuk? Bas Bavel hashaduda ashrei she'yishalom lach. The violated daughter of Bavel, praiseworthy is he who will repay you. in accordance with the manner that you treated us. Ashrei sheyochas v'nipei tesay l'layach al asala. Praiseworthy is he who will clutch and dash your infants against the rock. What does that mean? This pasuk is teaching us that the enemies of Babel will bang the Babylonian children against the rocks in retribution for the manner in which the people from Babel treated the Jewish children. In Tehillim over there, this is a pasuk in Al Naris Babel, which the Gemara was talking about before. So over there, it's a nevuah saying that the psalmist prophetically refers to the devastation of Babylonia by Darius the Mede, which occurred soon after the Babylonians destroyed the first temple. Daryavesh hated and tormented Babylonia exactly as Babylonia had hated and tormented Israel. So if that's Daryavesh II, so then he had a Jewish mom. So then he's getting revenge. So, okay, fine. B'nei Tzion hayakarim hamsuloim bapaz. Pasuk says that the precious children of Tzion who are mesuloim with paz. What does that mean, mesuloim? It's a pasuk in Eicha. My mesuloim bapaz. Ilem dav mechape bepisa. If you want to say that it means that they were covered with jewelry that were made out of paz. Va'amri dvei Rav Shela. We learned in the Mismarich of Rav Shela. Tarti maskeli istiri pisa nochos bialma. 2 istira, which is 2 weights of paz, came down into the world. Chada b'rami v'chada b'kula alma. One fell to Rome and one fell to the rest of the entire world. There wasn't enough paz in Eretz Yisrael from so much jewelry could be made. And the stira is a sela. It's a very small amount. Elosh maganin as a paz b'yayfin. Rather, the pasuk means that they put paz to shame with their beauty. That the beauty of the children of Eretz Yisrael surpassed that of paz. And how did this come about? So Mesuloim is translated as praised. The verse therefore means the precious children of Tzin who are praised with paz. If you compare it to the most high quality thing, and they were still more beautiful than that. Originally, the noblemen of Rome would have in their bedroom, so to speak, the beautiful figures engraved on their signet rings of paz when they were in their bedroom. But from then on, after they killed the Yidden, they took the Jewish boys and tied them to their beds when they would be in their beds, because they were so beautiful. The Jewish boys were even more desirable for this purpose than the signet rings of paz, which in and of itself was beautiful. So one Jewish boy who was subjected to this treatment asked his friend, where is this punishment written in the Torah? He said to him, also every disease and every blow that are not written in this Torah, Hashem will bring upon you. Hashem threatened to bring punishments besides for those written expressly in the Torah. So it sounds pretty scary, and this pasuk is referring to this specific punishment, since this punishment is a very not clean kind of a thing. The Torah won't speak it out. As I state in Marsha. Omar, so the first boy said, Kama merchiktum v'duch the plan. How far am I from the place? Meaning, how much more do I have to learn in order to get to that pasuk? Omar lay, so the other one answered him, Ingad pusta of palga. A small amount, only a column and a half. Omar lay, the first one said to him, if I had reached that verse, I wouldn't have needed you to ask you what's pshat in this pasuk. So, meaning, because had I known that pasuk, I would have understood on my own that that's what this pasuk is referring to. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, who said in the name of Shimon Gamliel, Ma'idach Siv, what's a pshat in the pasuk that says, Eini oilolo lenafshi mikol b'nois iri. My eye has brought me grief over all the daughters of my city. Which וחורבן is this talking about? There were 400 shuls in the city of Beita. Each and every one of these 400 shuls had 400 teachers of children. And each one had 400 students. When the enemies entered the city, the students stabbed them with their sticks. But when the enemies prevailed and captured the students, they wrapped the students in their scrolls and set them on fire. We noticed that this was the derech of the Romans to kill them, because we know that Chanin ben Tradin was one of the Sarugay Malchus. They put soaking wool on his heart, and they tied him they wrapped him up in the Sefer Torah, and they lit him on fire, and they asked the Rebbe, what do you see? He said, I see the parchment is burning, and the oisius of parchos ba'avir. Tanu Rabbanu, we learned to the Brayz of Meister Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya Shaholach the Krach Gadol Sheberomi. There was an incident which Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya went to the great city of Rome. Amr Loi, they told him, Tinik Echad Yesh Beis Asurim, there's a boy in prison, Yefei Einayim v'Tevrayi, Ukvutzaisav Sturis Loi Taltalim, with beautiful eyes and a fine appearance, and his locks are arranged in curls. Holach v'Omer al Pesach Beis Asurim, Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya went and stood at the entrance of the prison. Omar, he said, Minotza l'Meshisa Yaakov Yisrael obeizes him. Who has given Yaakov over for spoil and Yisrael to plunderers? The boy answered and he said, is it not Hashem? It is this that brought upon us such a fate. We sinned against him, and our fathers didn't want to go in his ways, and they did not listen to his Torah. The boy continued the pasuk which Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya began, so he showed that he knew all the psukim. So this boy was a smart boy, he knew all the psukim of Nach. You know, when my uncle Yisrael came to Chaim Berlin in 9th grade, so his Rebbe started saying a pasuk in Mishlei, I think it was, and he yelled at the rest of the pasuk. It was a new boy. He was from Colorado. He wasn't from anywhere, you know. And anytime the Rebbe would say a pasuk, he would just finish up the rest of the pasuk. Where did he get? Like the Rebbe was like taken aback. Like, where did he get this from? So when they were living in Boulder, Colorado, so twice a year my grandfather would come into New York and bring back kosher candy. And every day, the way to the bus, like an hour and a half. So on the way there, my grandmother would teach them psukim and mishlei, and whoever would memorize it by heart, they would get candy. So everybody wanted to do it, so they all memorized all kinds of psukim. So this is very, you know, and that was for good zachem. This is a kid that was locked up. So Amar Rishon ben Chananya said, "Mevtechani boy shamayra Rabbi Yisrael." I'm certain that this boy will become a paisik, will become a Mayra Rabbi Yisrael. It's interesting because the Gemara says in Psachim a story, and the Rabbi Yochanan was the Rebbe in that case, and Rabbi Yochanan ended off the story by saying that this person is going to be a Mayra Rabbi Yisrael. So the Ben Yehoyada over there asks, what do you mean he's going to be a Mayra Rabbi Yisrael? He's going to become a Mayra Rabbi Goyim? Obviously, he's a paisik, he's going to pass on halachic questions for the Yidden. So he says a very interesting thing, and it's something to think about. He says that you have two kinds. I always say it like this: you have two kinds of Talmidei Chachamim. You have a Talmid Chacham like Reb Chaim Kanievsky. You know who never heard of him? Everyone heard of him. You have another Talmid Chacham like Reb Zundel Kreuzer. How many people heard of Reb Zundel Kreuzer? I don't know. In the last 10, 15 years, he became a gadol. You know, he became a famous person. He was a person that sat in Yerushalayim, sat and learned Tziyas from on Kol Torah Kula. I think he has in every Masechta and every Parsha and Yom and Tovim Plus. And you know, Reb Chaim used to say about him that Vaisais Hashem is machshav Reb Zundel's Torah more than mine, because me, everyone comes to bother me with brachas and stuff for Reb Zundel. You know, they let him learn. So the Ben Yehoyada explains that sometimes you have a person that his Torah is not that popularized in Klal Yisrael. He can be a world class lamdan, and it's so interesting if you go through different svarim, you see like how come this Rosh Hashiva shurim took off and that one didn't. This Rosh Hashiva could be a bigger gun than the other one, but for some reason this Torah took off, that one didn't. There's a certain siyata d'shmaya, and there's a whole cheshbon that goes into whose Torah is going to become a forsim and who not. And just because we're on discussing the Gemaras about the Churban Yushalayim, so besides for all the Talmidei Chachamim that were killed during the Churban in Europe, so besides for that, all the Torah that was lost, there was also a gzera that all that Torah should be lost and that Torah should be forgotten. Rabbi Nachum Zemba, what do we have from him? We have maybe 3-4 svarim from him. He had 10 volumes on Bavli and 10 volumes on Yerushalmi. A volume, I imagine, was more than 100 pages. There's probably hundreds and hundreds of pages. I mean, the records of Rabbonim that were killed during the war, go through them, recognize 5% of the names, 3% of the names. There's a few famous Gedalim that we know about, that we all know about. Certain even Chassidish Rebbes we know about. There's so many other ones that, you know, what happened? So that's what he's saying. He's going to be a Mayra Rabbi Yisrael. That his Torah is going to become popularized all around Klal Yisrael. I swear by the avodah of the Beis Hamikdash that I'm not leaving here until I redeem them for whatever price they demand for him. So the question is, it's usher to be paid somebody to do pidyon shvuyim for more than they're worth. So that was the kash over here. So over here, an exception was warranted in this case, either because the boy's life was in danger, or because he showed exceptional promise in Torah scholarship. As they state in Tosfos, Kol mamash apaiskin Amru today, it was said that Lezaz Misham Acha Padim Maman Harb, it says Rishum and Hanani didn't budge from there until he redeemed the boy with a large sum of money. Lehayu Yamam Muatam Acha Hayra Hayrab Yisrael was not more than a short time before he became a Torah authority in Klal Yisrael. Umanu, and who was he? Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha. So we know that Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha was a Kohen Gadol, and he was Nichnat L'Fnai V'L'Fnim from the Gemara Brachas, or if you're not familiar with the Gemara, at least you should be familiar with the song Tanya. Tanya, Omar, Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha, right? That's this. But it's very complicated without getting into the complexities. The pashtus is that this was a grandson of the original Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha, because Rabbi Shmuel Kohen Gadol was killed as one of the Asur Gamalchas, and that story doesn't fit with this story, as the Gemara is going to say right now. So I actually, when I was learning that Gemara in Brachas, in Mitzvah Shem, when we go through these Gemaras in a little more depth, we go through this, that the kumt ice from this whole sugyam of which exactly Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha was, there probably were 3 Rabbi Shmuel ben Elishas, not 2, as we're saying now. Rabbi Yehuda Amarav. Rabbi Yehuda said in Amarav, Ma'aseh b'bnei Bita shel Shmuel ben Elisha shenishbu l'shnei adonim. There was a story in which the son and the daughter of Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha were captured and sold to 2 masters. He was a Kohen Gadol by the name of Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha, and he had a descendant who was also called Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha. The Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha referred to in this story was only a boy at the time of the וחורבן, was certainly a descendant. It's unclear whether the present story also refers to the descendant or whether it refers to the Kohen Gadol. Who talks about this? The Yavitz, the Ramshif, the Cheshach Shlomo, the Eitz Yosef. So everybody's busy with this. Sometime later, the 2 masters chanced upon each other in a certain place. This one says, I have a slave whose beauty is without equal in the entire world. The other one says, I have a shivcha whose beauty is without equal in the entire world. They said, come, let's marry them together and we'll divide the children, meaning that they'll have beautiful children. They brought the son of the daughter of Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha into a room. He said in one corner and she said in another corner. He said, Ani Kohen ben Kehanim Gedalim Eser Shivcha. I'm a Kohen, the children of Kehanim Gedalim. How can I marry a Shivcha? And she says, Ani Kohenes bas Kehanim Gedalim. And Nosel Eved, I'm a Kohenes, the daughter of Kehanim Gedalim. How can I marry a slave? Ubachol Kol Alayla, and they wept the entire night. Kevin Shalom Mudashachir Kiru Zeh. When dawn broke, they recognized each other. V'naflu Zel Zeh. They fell on each other. They embraced each other. V'go b'bchia, and they wept bitterly. Achiyatzu nishmasan, until their souls departed. V'aleim kainin Yirmiyah, and in reference to them, Yirmiyah said in the Nevuah, Al Eila ani b'chia eini yordamayim. Over these people I weep. My eye runs with water. So the Maharsha goes through what this pasuk has to do specifically with this story. But the pashtus is that this pasuk of Al Eila ani b'chia eini yordamayim is that the וחורבן came about because of the Meraglim, that they did a Bechia Shal Chinam, so there were Kaveh Bechia Shal Deiris. So that's Al Eila Ani Bechia, that's what the Yirmiyah is talking about, and the Svarim HaKadoshim talk that every month of the year is connected a different ois, is connected a different part of the body, and that month is an avodah that corresponds to that part of the guf. So the part of the guf that shayach to the chadoshim, Tams and Av, are the einayim, are the eyes, and that the meraglim were choyte be'einayim, and the Beis Hamikdash is called Einay Shel Olam, like the Gemara says in Bava Basra. So the eyes have a lot to do with the Malkum Hamikdash and the וחורבן and the bechia of the וחורבן Beis Hamikdash. Rish Lakish says, Ma'aseh b'isha achas, is a story with a woman. Tzafnas bas Peniel Shma, and her name was Tzafnas bas Peniel, and she was taken captive. Tzafnas shakol tzafim b'yafya. She was called Tzafnas because everyone gazed at her beauty. Bas Peniel bita shel Kohen Gadol sheshimish l'fnai v'l'fnim. She was called the daughter of Peniel because she was the daughter of the Kohen Gadol who served in the Beis Hamikdash. Shanis alol ba sha'avoy kol halayla. Her captor abused her an entire night. L'machar halbisha shuvach halukum etzil l'maycher. The next day he clothed her in 7 robes and took her to sell her as a shuvcha in the market. A person who's extremely ugly came over to her. Amalai, he approached the captor and he said to him, Hareni is Yefya, show me her beauty. Amalai Reika, so the captor said to him, you empty person, if you want to buy her, buy her. Because her beauty is at that equal in the entire world. Omar Loi, so the man said to the captor, Aval Pikain, even so, I would like to see her for myself. If Shita Shisha Chalukim, he removed 6 robes from her, Ushri Karasam and Espal Shabafar. She ripped the 7th robe and rolled in the dust, because she didn't want to have anything to do with this kind of Isa. So, the Efer is ashes. Efer, Ofar, shtickle interchangeable, V'anerchi, Ofar, Ve'efer. There's a lot of Torah on this. She ripped the 7th robe and rolled in the dust. Amar Lefanov, she said, Rebbeinu Shalaylam, Imalenu Leichasta, if you don't have Rachmanus on us, Al Kedusha Shtumcha, Gibar Lama Leitachos. Why is that a reason that you don't have pity on the holiness of your mighty name? Because, what does Rashi say over here? Rashi says, V'hechan Gvurasech, where's your Gvura? If you're allowing your people to get so abused and so beaten up like this, so where's your Gvura? So if allow Kainin Yirmiyah, in reference to this, Yirmiyah said in the Nevuah, he was Mekainain, he laments, Bas Amichi Grisak, Vespalshi Be'efer, O daughter of my people, gird on sackcloth and roll in the ashes, Evel Yachid Asilach, make for yourself a mourning as for an only son, Mispat Tamrurim, Kifisam Yavai Hashayded Elenu. A most bitter lamentation for the plunderer, the Shayded, shall suddenly come upon us. The pasuk in Yirmiyah. Alayach lenemar, it doesn't say upon you, meaning referring to Klal Yisrael, Ela Aleinu. Rather, it says upon us, HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the people. Kaviyachol Alay v'Alayach bar Shayded. Hashem is saying, it's as if the Shayded, the enemy, comes upon me and upon you. When Klal Yisrael suffers, Hashem's name is desecrated. Okay, Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav, what's the pasuk that says, Va'oshku gever ubeisev ishnach losai. They oppress a man in his house, which would mean his wife, and even a man in his inheritance. So pasuk in Micha. So Ma'aseh B'Adam Echad, there was a story with a person shenos and Eina Beichas Rabbi V'Shulya Denagri Hava. There was an incident in which a man who was a carpenter's apprentice coveted the wife of his master. Shenos and Eina Beichas Rabbi, not his Rebbe who taught him Torah, but his Rebbe of Shulya Denagri who taught him how to be a carpenter. It was his teacher. One time his master needed to borrow some money. So the student said to him, send your wife to me and I'll give her the loan. So he could spend time with her. The master sent his wife to the apprentice, and the apprentice spent 3 days with her. So the master arose early the next morning and went to the apprentice. So the master asked him, so where's my wife who I sent to you? He said to him, I excused her immediately. I heard that some youths misbehaved with her on the way. This a lot of times is the lashon they use for abuse. So the master asked him, what should I do? What was the question? The apprentice was saying that the master's wife had participated in this iznos willingly. If this accusation was true, then the master would have to be megarisher, because the Torah doesn't allow the husband to marry, to continue living with the Isha of the Eishes Ish, who is Mizan of the Eishes Ish. Omaloi, so the apprentice answered him, Garsha. If you take my advice, divorce her. Omaloi, so the master said to him, Ksubasa Meruba, but a Ksuba payment is great. There's a lot of money, right? Technically speaking, she should lose her Ksuba because she was Mizana, right? Although a woman who commits adultery loses her right to her Ksuba payment, in this instance, the husband had no proof that his wife was Mizana, therefore he wasn't required by law to be Megarish his wife. And if he did divorce her, he would be required to pay her Ksuba. So Omar Loy, so the student said to him, I'll lend you the money and then you'll be able to give her the Ksuba that you owe her. So the master went ahead and divorced her. So the student went and married her. When the time came for the master to repay the loan to the student and he didn't have the money to pay, the student, so the student said, come and work for me to pay off the debt. While the apprentice and his wife were sitting, meaning the apprentice, his wife was the previous wife of the teacher. So, come and work for me to pay for that. While the apprentice and his wife were sitting, eating and drinking, the master would stand and serve them something to drink. And tears fell from his eyes and would drop into the cups. Because it would happen at that time, the decree of the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash was Nechtam in Shemayim. But Amri Lo Shtei Psilas Ben Erechad, but some said that the decree was sealed because of an Eishes Ish, because of the adultery committed by the apprentice and the master's wife. So according to either version, this was a very well publicized incident, and yet no one protested the apprentice's outrageous behavior. It sounds like people knew about it, but no one put their foot down. Therefore, all the people that knew about it and didn't say anything were mechuyev, right? Because the Gemara says in Shabbos that a person who knows about something and doesn't give musar, so then it's on his cheshbon, like the Gemara started off with the story of Kמצא Bar Kמצא, that the Rabbanan were there. It's a shmami no kaneichalahu. She says, the Rabbanan weren't meiches, so vice versa, the Rabbanan don't mind, right? So the I think it's the Ben Ishchai in the Ben Yehuda says that we to be melamed chus on the Rabbanan, you could say that they didn't know what was going on, right? The Rabbanan, it was a huge party. There were hundreds of people there to see that the Balabus was fighting with some guy in the corner trying to slap him out to make a tasty. But the pshat is that the Rabbanan said, it's so hard to talk to these people. They don't listen to the rabbis. So if we're going to give them musar, our whole, we're never going to be able to do anything anymore, because they do just laugh at the Rabbanim anyways. So why should we even bother giving them musar? But that was wrong. Right? They shouldn't, even if they wouldn't give musar, but to stay there, that would also be a time. Okay, so here, this is the end of the Gemaras of the Tisha B'Av Gemaras, the Kמצא, the Bar Kמצא Gemaras. And I think we could put away the article because there's no need for speeding tickets anymore. And just to admit to Hashem that this year we'll have a Freilich and Luch, the Tisha B'Av, and it won't be a day of Avelos. And it's interesting that it's found in Masech Gittin, because the Gemara says, Reb Tzadok writes that any time you find something in a Masechta, it's not there. It's not there. Just didn't just fall in there. There's a very specific reason why it's there. So it says by Megarish as Ishtay Rishayna Afilim Mizbeach Myrtle of the Moist. That's when a person Megarish his wife, his first wife, Siren the Mizbeach is Myrtle of the Moist. The get is a pshat that it's something that repels another person. The Taisus at the very beginning of the Masechta says that the Gimel and the Test are two Isis in the Torah that are never next to each other. Right? That's what the Goin says, right? On the Taisus, the Big Shmuz, the first Taisus, the Masechta. So the whole reason why the Churban came about was because of Sin Askinim and people that were, not being able to be menschlich to other people, and throughout all these Gemaras, seeing all the various terrible tragedies that the people were doing, and the way that they got tormented, and the way that the Churban played out, and all these things, it's very hard to pinpoint one specific thing and to give musar about, do this and do that. But the one thing is for sure, that Masechta Gittin, it's never a good place that you want to go to. And the Beis Hamikdash is state in the Gemara that the Torah tziva lanu Moshe Meirasha Kilas Yaakov. I'll take her Meirasha L'Meirasa. That there's erison between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael. Now erison, they're not living together, right? They spend time with each other, but they're not the whole time. But La'asid Lavai, then there's going to be a Nesuin of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael, and then it's not going to be. We're going to have the Beis Hamikdash back, so we're not going to have it. It's not going to be in the Gittin part. They're going to get everybody, the Klal Yisrael and the HaKadosh Baruch Hu are going to be back together. When the long lost family member finally comes back home, and everybody's all smiles and everybody's all happy, and Mitzvah Hashem's all zion that we should have Mashiach should come already, and we should get out of this galus, and it should be good for all the Jews. All right, perfect timing for Marav. Yeah. Okay.